love nice high-end rifles, and I've got a couple myself.
Nice.
They're awesome.
Dead on it.
But there is something about budget-friendly options at work that can really get me excited, especially when they exceed my expectations. You know, if you're looking for options like that, then you should subscribe to my channel because it's built around that very basic concept. And besides, you're an awesome patriot and you want to support gun channels like mine while we still have them on YouTube. So I will tell you that this is not a T&E gun. This rifle was bought with my own money to include the accessories, optics, and ammunition used for this video. So you can be assured that this is an unbiased video, just me sharing my own personal experiences and opinion about this rifle. So it should be pretty in-depth review. So sit back and enjoy, and let's get into the video. All right, as I mentioned, I really do love this rifle, especially since I didn't pay $900 for it. I find it interesting that for whatever reason, when we're looking at rifles, that the conversation typically always goes really high end. And sometimes people believe that you got to spend a lot of money in order to go out and do stuff like this. By all means, this isn't a just as good video, so please don't confuse that. It's not what I'm trying to, not the point I'm trying to make by any stretch. But I think there is some acceptable expectation for this rifle, and for me, because it does shoot pretty good. And a matter of fact, my confidence over the last about year or two that I've been shooting this, my confidence has grown pretty much, grown quite a bit, and now I'm using this more as a target configuration. So currently we have this set up as I've got an Athlon Talos BTR first focal plane scope. Now this rifle really did start its life, I think I had a Nikon P Tactical, and then I ended up putting the Kono scope, which I did review if you want to check that one out. Really awesome scope. And I did take that scope and this rifle combination out to 600 yards. But it was lacking one thing that this scope has that one really doesn't. And that was the fact that it didn't have the ranging reticle. When you get out at those 5, 6, 7, 800 yards especially, it's really nice having that ranging reticle and just doing the wind holds instead of having to dial. So I decided that, you know what, this scope would be better suited for it, and I have reviewed this scope if you're interested. It's an older video, but this is a decent scope for well under $300. You can pick these scopes up. Also, if you're setting this up for any kind of long-range shooting or something like that, it's nice to have a first focal plane and a variable optic, because I can dial my magnification back, especially when we got a rifle with a light supporter barrel like this one. Because you're going to get some recoil and some bounce. So if you got your magnification zoomed up really high, you're going to have a nice tight sight picture, and it's going to look really awesome until you shoot it, because you're going to completely lose your sight picture, and you're constantly going to be resetting and reconfiguring your rifle, and you can't follow through the shot. So the best thing to do is back off that magnification and get your sight picture more something like this, so when it fires you can track your shot and you can see if you missed or if you made an impact or not. So really nice to have that. And with this being first focal plane, the ranging reticle will work throughout the entire magnification range. It's fine to use a second focal plane scope if that's what you're interested in. Just keep in mind that if in order to use that ranging feature, you have to have it set on the right power range for those subtensions to work. As I mentioned, this does have a lighter barrel, so we expect a little bit more recoil and bounce. And this is chambered in 243 Winchester, which is a fantastic round. It's not a high recoiling round. When you're trying to do some of those applications that I talked about, it's nice to be able to dampen some of that recoil down. So I went ahead and installed a 3-chamber brake right here. And I apologize, guys. I don't know who makes this brake. It was an Amazon buy, and it's fine. It works pretty good, actually. There's probably better options for that, but that is why I have put that brake on it. It does make it louder. You do makes the rifle feel a lot bigger than what it is, but it does tame that down and keeps it a little flatter. Finally, I've got a cheap bipod on here. So I've talked about bipods before, and one thing about bipods and very flimsy polymer stocks is when you go and you shoot in the prone, and you can see here, there's quite a bit of wobble and flex in here. And actually, as I go in here and I start twisting and manipulating this stock, you can see that the barrel is actually making contact with the walls of the forend, and that's not good. And what's going to happen is when I'm shooting, I'm actually introducing little nodes onto the barrel, and the barrel can't free float and vibrate consistently, and we'll probably get some accuracy issues or some flyers or some stringing. So not the end of the world. One thing you do, and what I do a lot of times with all my rifles, is I typically will shoot off a rest or a bag. Even something like this bipod rapid rest, which I get lots of questions about these. This is a $30 rest, and it's just got a little V channel. And what's cool is you just line this up in the stock, and it allows it to recoil a little freer. Now this rubberized material does like to grab a little bit, so you can get a little bit of chatter sometimes, and that can lead to some problems. But it is going to be a little bit better than the bipod, and because we're not putting that additional stress on the forend. Really the best option is something like this. If we're wanting to shoot for best accuracy, is shoot off a heavy rest. And what's cool about these is when this actually goes to recoil, it allows it to slide straight back into the shoulder and keeps that muzzle a little bit flatter, so you'll be able to track that shot through a little bit better, and we're not putting any extra stress. Even though the weight's resting on it, that's going to be consistent every time, and it's just going to lead to a little bit better accuracy with using those accessories. So those are what I use. Most of the time the bipod is doing exactly what you see it here. I just use it to hold the rifle up. Or if I wanted to use it as a hasty shooting position, I could certainly do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just know that I'm going to have a little bit less accuracy probably. So we're out testing how well this thing can shoot off a rest, shoot off a bag, and you'll see better results. This is chambered in 243 Winchester, which is a fantastic cartridge. Low recoiling cartridge. It's got lots of velocity. Typically you're looking at rounds that are going about 3,000 feet per second. It's a great cartridge for intermediate and long range shooting, hunting, and all kinds of stuff. The capacity is a 5-round magazine, so this is not 4. This is just a polymer magazine, and these magazines are actually pretty good. I've not had any issues loading this, and I find it to be pretty easy. The barrel is made of steel. I don't know what kind of steel. I couldn't find that information. I would assume it's a 4140 steel. It is a Burt Bronze Cerekote, and it does have fluting on it. It is a sporter profile barrel, as I mentioned before, and is seated in this polymer Strata camouflage stock, and just looks really amazing. The bolt is a spiral fluted bolt with a 2-lug design. All right, and we've got a single plunger there, and an interesting looking bolt. This has been synonymous, I think, with a lot of Mossberg rifles now. You see that spiral fluted bolt, and it does have an enlarged handle there that has about a 60-degree bolt lift, and this is going to be something unique. Both, I think, the Cerekote with the Burt Bronze Cerekote, the Strata camo, and this enlarged bolt handle are going to be unique to the Predator line of rifles from Mossberg. And in order to take it out, you'll simply push back on the tab back here, and you can remove it, and you can clean your rifle, look down the bore, whatever you need to do, clean your bolt. The bolt manipulation on this, I actually like quite a bit. It's very, very easy. And as you can see, as I kind of manipulate this bolt, it's effortless, okay? Now it does cock on the bolt lift. So when I go to lift it, you'll see that it'll torque the rifle, but you give a little bit, but I don't want to overstate that. It's very easy, and actually it's a lot of fun to manipulate. We do have a lot of slop back here, okay, inside the chamber here, so it's not a real tight, buttery feel. And the spiral flutes give it kind of a funny catching feeling, especially if you apply pressure left to right on it or up and down. You can create some binding. As you see, I'm out here and I press the side. It's kind of hanging up here, and I press too hard to the right. All right, I'm going to create some binding, and with that slop that's in there, it's going to create a little bit of binding, but it's able to remove any kind of debris or material out of there and help clean that, keep that bolt nice and clean. You know, when I compare this to something like one of my Christensen arms or even my Remington 700s, that bolt feels much smoother and tighter. And but I don't know how else to explain it. It feels really nice, and it's a bolt that I like to actually manipulate quite a bit. So really overall, I think they did a good job with that. It does come with a Picatinny sight base pre-installed, and good on Mossberg for doing that. A lot of the scopes, especially in this price point, will either come without any kind of mounting solution, or it'll have individual weaver sights similar to my Savage Axis 2. And the problem with those are you're limited of what you can actually mount. You have to put kind of bigger scopes on. In most cases, for the short action rifles, you'll need at least a 4 to 12 to be able to have enough space to mount the scope. Because your 3 to 9s and stuff like that are just simply going to be too short, and your objective belt potentially could get in the way and you can't get a proper mounting. The Picatinny rail will give you plenty of flexibility to mount your scope, whatever you choose to mount on it. The trigger is, I can't remember what they call it, I'll put it down in the bottom of the screen there, but this is an adjustable trigger, a trigger weight adjustable to between 2 and 6 pounds, and I gotta tell you, this is probably one of the best features about this rifle is this trigger. It is amazing. It's similar to the Savage Accu trigger. That is really, really awesome. And probably one of the best parts about this rifle is the trigger. I mean, it's and I've not adjusted it at all. It's just how it came from the factory. Maybe it was set, but it feels pretty light, and probably one of my favorite features about this rifle. All right, finally, so overall performance is pretty good. So I've had a couple of seasons now that I've shot this. So I went out and bought some factory ammo. So I've got some a Winchester Super X here. This is some 80 grain box here. I also had some 100 grain. See, I got some Federal Fusion. Look at that, $20 for that box. You think we'll ever see that price again? So shot some Federal Fusion out of it. We shot some Hornady Superformance. This has got the 95 grain SST bullet, and I actually took this round out to 600 yards. And I think that was all the factory that I shot through it. I was getting groups, you know, in that 2, maybe 3 inch range. It wasn't really that great. And then after a few sessions with it, it actually started to tighten up. I think it's mostly because the copper fouling was starting to build up in the barrel, and that's just part of the barrel break-in process. So we did get a little bit better than that, but when the rifle's new, it's probably not going to be shoot that great, especially when you're shooting stuff like this that really, it's not the most accurate stuff. I know the 100 grain stuff was pretty accurate, I thought, but it was simply what you'll see is you'll see maybe 1 or 2 or 3 rounds pretty tight, maybe a 1 or 2 inch group, and then you'll have a weird flyer by 5, and that's going to be common with this type of ammunition. So the Fusion was about the same, maybe a little bit better with the Federal Fusion stuff. The Hornady Superformance is actually pretty good. It did like these SST bullets, and those weren't bad. I think these were about an inch to inch and a half group. 5-shot group when I tested it. So what's interesting about that is you'll see, especially on YouTube, people will go out and they'll shoot the rifle like, oh, it shoots like crap. And they're just grabbing boxes of ammo like this. And the truth is, yeah, the rifle may shoot like crap, but it could also be that it just doesn't like that ammunition. You can have this ammo shoot really crappy in a nice rifle. I've done it. But you can still make a rifle like this shoot really good. One of the ways to do that, if you're a hand loader, like myself, I do reloads, and I got a hold of some Hornady 87 grain boat tail hollow points and shot up a box of these, did a load development, and actually was blown away by how accurate it was. Do what's called a ladder test, and you'll put 5 rounds on one charge, and then you'll up it by maybe a half grain, sometimes 2/10 of a grain. Some people might even do 1/10 of a grain of powder, and you'll work that up until you find the load that works well. So you'll have a batch of them, you go out and shoot groups until you find a group that it likes. And to put that in perspective of how small of a charge difference that is, a pound of powder is about 7,000 grains. So we're talking about a very small amount of powder that we're changing it. And you can see groups go from an inch and a half down to 3/4 just by a half grain difference. So that's what a lot of hand loaders and reloaders do, and they can make rifles like this shoot very well. Now, if you don't hand load, you don't reload, you might find some ammunition that shoots really well. If you're shooting 1 to 2 inches out of this rifle, I think that's fair. With a little bit of match ammunition, you might be able to get that down to an inch or even better, especially on a 3-shot group. So when I took this, I put this scope on it, when took it back out to the range, I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and shoot some 3-shot groups. I would have shot 5-shot groups, but I was really low on my loads, and I wanted to get it out to range, so I'm like, I'll just do 3. So I shot the first, got lined up and shot the first one, and I couldn't find my shot. I'm like, where the heck did this thing go? And it was so 100 yards out, and I cannot find my impact. Went down, looked at the target, and lo and behold, it's drilled right through the center of that target, right on the dot. I just couldn't see it from 100 yards away. So I said, okay. So I just went back and I shot the next group, 3-shot group on the target to the left. Same thing, first shot right through the bullseye. All right, there's the Mossberg Patriot 3-shot group. We got 2 touching there, and then 1 off here. I would say probably 3/4 of an inch group. Not bad for a $400 rifle. So we're looking at sub MOA 3-shot group out of this rifle. I think indicates how accurate this rifle can be with the right ammunition. Taking it out to range, I'll be honest with you, this thing did perform really well. My biggest challenge is just doing my wind calls, and I always struggle with my wind holds for whatever reason, and usually I underestimate my wind. And I was able to, once I got my wind figured out, I was making pretty good hits on most of the targets out there, with the exception of that daggone groundhog at 600 yards. I've only successfully, I think, hit that guy maybe with my Remington PCR 6.5 Creedmoor as a really accurate rifle. But the rest of the targets, the man-sized silhouettes, even that small pig at 600 yards is a pretty small target. We were able to make good hits with that. So all in all, it's a fantastic rifle for the money. I think it's going to do just as good as some of the other stuff that's out there, and I think you'd be pretty happy with it if you're thinking about getting something like this for target shooting. Just make sure you outfit it correctly with a good target scope. Maybe put you a break on it and find you some good, decent ammunition, and give some time to break the rifle in. I wouldn't shoot 50 through it and say it's crap, but give it about 50 to 100 rounds or so, and don't clean all that fouling, copper fouling out of there. Just run some swabs through there and take out some of the carbon. And I think you'll find that this thing does actually pretty well. So all in all, fantastic rifle. I really don't have any complaints about it, to be perfectly honest with you. If I would have spent $900 to $1,200 on the rifle, of course, I would probably complain about the stock, and I would complain about the bolt. Outside of that, it's just fantastic. The trigger is probably the best part about this, outside of I really do like the Cerekote, and really just an awesome rifle. So good job, Mossberg. My first Mossberg rifle, and I'm pretty impressed with it. So other than that, I'm thinking about putting a chassis on it. I don't know. It's about a $300 to $400 investment to do that, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying this and putting a chassis on it, because Mossberg does offer rifles like this with chassis, and so you would actually be saving money just buying it from Mossberg. But I might do that just because I want to. So we'll see. We'll see if I end up doing that or not. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys checking out the channel. If you got any comments or questions, feel free to drop me a comment down in the comment section. I appreciate your guys' time. You have a wonderful day.